Monster Hunter has always been known for having some of the most dangerous monsters of all time, and with some of them even getting the title of gods. The Elder Dragon, seen as the most unstoppable forces of monsters, and then obviously some of them taking the title of gods: Storm God, White God, the Black God, the Blazing Black Dragon, the Ender Dragon. So many entities can be considered gods in the Monster Hunter verse, but we know that there are only very few that can even earn or rise up to that title. But what if we actually put a monster god in the Monster Hunter verse? What if we actually chose someone from a different universe that was actually a god? And this god or goddess herself is known as Tiamat, someone extremely powerful, a deity of the sea, of the Babylonian gods. And what if she was the one in Monster Hunter? Now, I know some of you may be asking, how powerful is Tiamat to even be in the Monster Hunter verse in the first place? Now, for those of you who don't know, this is Smite Tiamat from the Smite game, and I actually do play it myself now. And I actually started, this year, or I should say last month, and believe it or not, the game has actually kind of grown on me. It's like a Marvel Rivals, but it's, I guess you could say not on the same scale, but good enough for me, to be honest. I love all the deities, or at least the ones that I, intend to use, because, I ain't touching Dirty Zeus anytime soon. But Tiamat would actually scale to all of these gods. And keep in mind, these gods would still have their lore and still have their pantheons, like Egyptian, Norse, Greek, Chinese, and etc. So all of these characters would still have their still have their cosmologies and everything when it comes down to who they are. Tiamat is a Babylonian dragon goddess of the sea. She's able to do energy blast, energy manipulation. She's even able to manipulate things like hurricane winds, and she's even able to summon her army, which is known as basilisks, which I actually find interesting because they look nothing like a traditional basilisk. But again, I actually do like that about certain, I guess you could say franchise when it comes to gods, when they pretty much go against traditional forms and there are different species or different subspecies of basilisks and stuff like that, right? So Tiamat herself would scale to all the other gods. Every god scales to each other, with some gods actually needing to be, I guess you could say, augmented, if you will. And there are beings that actually achieve god status. For example, King Arthur, and another one who's going to be on these Smite videos coming up very soon is Mulan. So these guys were able to ascend to godhood and went from being ordinary beings to beings that can literally fight against gods. Now you might say, okay, Legendary, enough of all that. How strong are all these gods? Well, believe it or not, there's a few ways that you can actually scale them. Number one, they're all able to affect each other. So this does kind of negate the fact that, one god is stronger than the other. But each god does have their advantages. Some are stronger, some are faster, and some are more durable than the others. And some of them have easily, simple hacks and abilities that allow them to, get along. So believe it or not, these gods will scale to Cthulhu and to Nox. Nox being one of the few night gods in the verse, and then there's also Kronos, the living embodiment of time itself. So they can easily surpass him or basically be equal to that of time itself. This obviously gets to the universal feats, but there is also higher. With Nox, she was actually able to give birth to the very concepts of hope, life, death, and, other things on top of it. She's able to casually make concepts. This elevates her status as, again, she is one of the more powerful primordial beings within it. This means that Nox herself and the rest of the gods could easily get into the complex multiversal. Because again, if they are creating concepts, they can affect the concepts of other pantheons and other beings who have higher realms, such as the underworld, or, you know, Hades' realm, or Anubis' underworld, and stuff like that. They're able to affect them on a conceptual level, which actually updates their, you know, power and abilities. Tiamat actually has a feat that puts her above a large majority of the gods in the verse, meaning that she is one of the top tiers, and that was her being able to seal Cthulhu with absolute ease. And keep in mind, she did this with very little difficulty, and well, obviously she would still have some issues with her own pantheon, and that being the prideful and stubborn Gilgamesh, who seeks immortality through, I believe, the dragon's heart. And so, with that being said, there are a plethora of abilities that Tiamat can do. She can seal opponents away. She's able to, yeah, as I said earlier, manipulate energy. Obviously, like every other god in this pantheon or in this game, they can easily regenerate from having, you know, being stabbed through the chest or impaled in the heart and stuff like that. So, yeah, they basically have just about every resistance and every hexen ability that these these godlike beings can just, you know, do. With Tiamat, she just has wind manipulation, energy manipulation, and obviously magical manipulation, being able to seal and trap opponents, and even use just a simple fraction of her power just to overpower the elder god Cthulhu. So with that being said, here we can now talk about Tiamat herself, and well, how she would impact the Monster Hunter verse. Well, what would happen if Tiamat was in the verse in general? I mean, she wouldn't destroy anything. She's not that kind of god. And in all honesty, I think the best way for her to actually appear is during a Fatalis crisis. Basically where the hunter is kind of on his last legs. He can't really do anything or, you know, try anything that'll ultimately get him killed or ultimately beat Fatalis, right? So this is where Tiamat would actually simply state, alright, enough is enough, and this is where she would use the same trick she did on Cthulhu to push back Fatalis and then winding up sealing him. I also think it would be interesting if she sealed Fatalis in the very tower that he was in, basically making him a prisoner in his own arena, destined to only come out if her magic begins to waver. So I actually think that would also be a good story point for those who would try to hunt Tiamat. They have to consider the fact that taking her, or, you know, maybe just attacking her or in defeating her, would likely cause Fatalis to be released from its castle and thus destroying the world. Meaning that the guild would actually put her on a ban on hunt list, meaning that no one would honestly, I guess you could say, hunt her or try to hunt her, because again, it's just vastly too risky. I don't see any reason why they would try to ultimately, you know, hunt or harm her in any way. And believe it or not, Tiamat is grateful. Tiamat knows how to return the favor, and in all honesty, I think she would actually begin to kind of mold the Monster Hunter world in her image. But again, considering how the people are, I do think she would not overly do it. And it's very possible we could see her basilisk in the environment, probably as either guardian creatures to certain villages, or maybe even whatchamacallit, be a part of the natural order or the natural rank. But this does mean they may even be elder dragon level monsters, considering they are still capable of harming godlike entities and stuff like that. So yeah, they would definitely be probably above elder dragons or on par with elder dragons. So I guess it depends on Tiamat and if we power cap her for the entire verse, right? So with that being said, Tiamat would actually be able to do a plenty of good in the entire verse, believe it or not. And I actually do think that her powers and capabilities would actually make the world a safer place. But let's talk about what Tiamat's influence could ultimately bring. How would she, I guess you could say, change the verse, and how would she you know, make it better for the hunters and everyone else, right? Well, for starters, I think she could honestly create a new elder dragon. Now you might say, whoa, legendary, what do you mean by that? Considering how the gods and the other entities work, Tiamat ultimately could create new elder dragons, probably even, I guess you could say, develop guardian monsters. So I think it would be interesting if she actually saw some of these elder dragons and thinks, perhaps I could put my influence in there or have my own ecological spectrum. And that is very possible, considering Tiamat did create her own, I guess you could say, castle out of the fallen remains of Olympus in, well, the clip I just showed you guys after the first initial gameplay. And believe it or not, I think that she would probably create her own island. I could see that happening, where she creates her own island, and it could actually be a ultimate test for hunters. So imagine you're a hunter, right, from Monster Hunter Rise world or Wilds, and they ultimately can go to this island, right, and they have to fight against Elder Dragon level monsters consistently, all flowing naturally in a ecosystem where everything just fits. You know, it's a perfect ecosystem. However, the only caveat is everything's an Elder Dragon level monster, including the herbivores or the lesser creatures. They are also Elder Dragon level monsters. Now, you might ask, how would Zoshia react to things such as the Equal Dragon weapon, or, you know, the Zoshia, right? And I actually think Tiamat, after seeing them, she could likely do one of two things. She could destroy them, as again, they were the initial problem and were one of the reasons why Fatalis did ultimately appear at the end of the day. Or she could likely empower them and maybe even rewrite them entirely, thus meaning the Equal Dragon weapon and even Zoshia would actually be around and likely be heralds of Tiamat. But let's go with the second one, with her likely destroying them. Now you might ask, why would she destroy them, right? Because again, like I said earlier, they could be a problem. They could get out of control pretty easily. And I could actually see her fighting against other Elder Dragons that would probably see her as an ecological or a rival threat. So ones like Nakarkos and Sadeus would view Tiamat as an ecological threat, or at least into them. Now, Nakarkos would definitely be one of the few creatures she does have to either keep in line or keep in check consistently, while Sadeus's are more or less chill and not minding, just minding their business. However, they can cause destruction to islands when they do scratch their horn. So imagine, your whole home is just sinking because this creature just needs to see. Unfortunate for both sides, but it is what it is. So with that being said, Tiamat would likely either keep Nakarkos in check and likely eat him too. However, remember the Elder Dragon I said that Tiamat would ultimately create? Well, I actually did figure out which one would actually suit her, I guess you could say her pantheon, or her ideal being a herald, right? Considering the fact that Tiamat is an aquatic god, which is actually very interesting, that she does have these very interesting looking basilisks, which are, I don't know. I find them very interesting in my opinion. They look very cute, in all honesty. But I do believe that Tiamat does have a Elder Dragon that was honestly made for her. And we don't see it very often, only appearing once in the games. Kind of shameful, because it would definitely be perfect for Wilds and the Scarlet Forest in general. But I do think this Elder Dragon does have her heart, and I do think it would be perfect for her. And that being Namielle. Namielle is one of the few underrated Elder Dragons, and in my opinion, the scariest, to be honest. All that, camouflaging on its natural level in a bioluminescent environment, and you couldn't even see until it just drops right on you. And again, I do think Namielle is perfect for the, whatchamacallit, definitely think it's perfect for the, Tiamat's Herald, excuse me. And I definitely think it could be easily the dominant Elder Dragon of its region, even an Apex Elder Dragon, because again, considering Tiamat's whole flow when it comes to like justice and preservation, yeah, I could definitely see her creating Namielle as pretty much this equalizer, meaning that Namielle and its species would be on the same level as the Nergigantes and Primordial Malzenos. There would actually be probably a little bit of a hierarchy, if you will. Nergigante being the physically toughest, Malzeno being the, I guess you could say, the faster and more intelligent of the two. And with Namielle, it could easily be the most versatile. I mean, when it comes to its moveset, it's got more versatility than Nergigante and probably just a bit more than Malzeno. We know Malzeno has the dragon element itself, has his wings for combat, has a little bit of teleportation, but Namielle just has a vast superior way of manipulating water and electricity all together. So I do think it would be the better Elder Dragon of these three when it comes to like versatility. Overall, let's talk about the towns real quick. They would be safer. I could definitely see like Basilisk coming through and making sure these towns are okay and stuff, and pretty much having Namielle in the environments as well would probably bring a lot more rain flow, a lot more controlled water systems, and definitely protect a lot of villages. It would probably be like a rare occasion to see a Namielle rampaging, but it could probably be the same situation as Mizutune. They rampage because, you know, they horny and they gotta get in. They gotta release all their energy. But overall, I do think Tiamat's influence would definitely be a very good good thing for the verse. Oh, well, I guess before I really do end this off here, let's actually talk about the dimensional anomalies. Now, you might say, oh, Legendary, what do you mean by the dimensional anomalies? I mean the creatures that actually pop in via the dimensional, I guess you could say dimensional storms and stuff like that. So beings like Behemoth, Ancient Leshen, and eventually Bahamut as well. Yeah, if you guys didn't know, we are getting Bahamut for Monster Hunter Wilds. It's very possible that Geralt and Akuma could draw her attention, but I don't really see it. Akuma may, because he would definitely look out for her or look for a fight from her. But I could actually see Tiamat coming to the rescue and dealing with a lot of these creatures and just sealing them. And it's very possible that Tiamat eventually would likely have her own arc around her where someone's hunting down elder dragons and trying to obtain power so that they can not only rival Tiamat but use her to pretty much take over the verse. And then we could likely have beings like Namielle be a more focal point, if you will. And this could actually show, I guess you could say, its role in the ecosystem. It's not only protecting villagers, it has to protect its master, its goddess, if you will. And dang, I never noticed she had them thick thighs, in all honesty. But overall, Tiamat's presence in Monster Hunter could actually be beneficial for the environment. She could easily deter invading forces, likely have to beat up black dragons every now and then, and, well, stump out a dimensional nightmare monster that has to come through the portal and, you know, run the ones with the hunters. Might not get boots every day, but, you know, at least we can get something out of it. But that's gonna be all today, you guys. Please comment down below, like and subscribe and share with your friends, and you guys have a blessed day.